Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a superhero movie review and we'll be having a look at the 2004 film The Punisher. So I'm a big Marvel Comics fan and I'm a fan in particular of The Punisher. Chris here has never read a Punisher comic in his life, so he's going to be looking at it more from just an action film point of view because he's a big action film fan. So you've got my perspective from a comic fan and his perspective from an action film fan. To give you an idea, there's obviously been 3 Punisher films, this one being the middle one, this one starring Thomas Jane. And it tells the story of Frank Castle, who in this one is an ex-FBI agent who gets one last job to sort of put away some sort of big drug cartel, and in doing so the son of one of the heads of this sort of criminal cartel gets killed, and this guy sort of decides he wants to get revenge by killing Frank Castle and all of his family. He successfully kills all of his family, but Frank Castle is left alive and kind of comes back to try and get revenge for obviously his family's death and punish the guilty ultimately. And you've got John Travolta playing the kind of the bad guy, the kind of the head of the criminal family, Howard Saint. Now Chris actually fell asleep in part of this film, so that'll probably give you some indication of what he thought of it. But what did you think of the actual film?
Well, actually, yeah, if I viewed it probably a bit earlier in the evening, I would have, seen a bit more of it. But as a sort of a observer from a different, not necessarily a comic fan, yeah, I thought it was, good movie.
Just as an action film?
Yeah, it was good. It was very violent. I thought it was very violent. There was elements, when I did wake up, there was elements that, like I said, like with the sort of
the tenants in the building.
The tenants, I thought was a bit kind of
So he's in a flat with a variety of other tenants, and they're for comedy relief, I think, a lot of it.
But I didn't think that. I don't know. It didn't work on every level. I didn't think, but I thought he was good in the role, and I thought John Travolta was pretty good as the bad guy, and I thought his demise was good at the end. So I thought on the whole, as an looking at it from an action flick, I haven't really seen any other Punisher film. I haven't seen the Dolph Lundgren one or anything like that, so I can't really compare. But on the whole, I'd say it was quite a good movie.
So as a comic fan, I mean, I think this one deviates a fair amount from the actual comic, to probably the most out of the 3 films. But at the same time, I think this film gives Frank Castle the most character. This is really the only film that we see a proper origin, and this is basically what it is. It's kind of an origin of the Punisher, whilst in both the other films the Punisher is kind of established already, and we kind of see a couple of flashbacks here and there. So this one is the origin, which has been slightly changed. Now Punisher has always been based in New York in the comics, but this time he's kind of I think it's Florida he's based in. And I do think that was maybe not the best move. I think it would have been better setting it in New York. I do quite like Thomas Jane as the Punisher, and he's a guy who's very passionate about the role, and he actually did a short himself, like a kind of unofficial sequel, so to speak, called Dirty Laundry, which go check it out if you've not seen that. So I do like him in the role. I agree with what he's saying about the comedy relief. I think maybe because it is such a sort of violent film, and this is one of the reasons I want you to see it, because it almost sort of it's so harsh in a way. It kind of harkens back to maybe an older time where you did have such high body counts in films and things like that. And I mean, I think that the scene where basically they kind of assassinate his family. Were you awake in that bit?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was especially, it was quite harsh, and it was it wasn't just his wife and kid. It was literally anyone who's related to him. Yeah. However, Disney were.
I mean, one thing I would have picked up on. I did pick up on. I found it, especially the beginning of the film, very similar to the first Mad Max film. I don't know whether they took elements from that. I don't know if the comics took element, or maybe Mad Max was inspired by that. I don't know, but it was very similar in the.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Actually,
in the fact, that same sort of thing happens, and he kind of goes out for vengeance, doesn't he? It's very similar in that sort of respect, but.
I do think it kind of drags in some places, I have to say, and I think the sort of. I think sometimes the bad guys are a little bit dumb. One thing I didn't like about it, now, if you're familiar with the comics, and you know, I'm not professing I'm the biggest sort of Punisher fan, but in the comics he's pretty much down to business. He doesn't sort of mess around trying to kind of have overly complicated sort of plans against the criminals. But in this one, he has this sort of plan where he kind of wants to sort of like make it out like he's having an affair with his kind of with his best mate, to sort of mess up the sort of the family dynamic, rather than just killing them. And to me, that felt out of character for the Punisher, because it just seemed to me like, yeah, I know he wanted to kind of mess up with John Travolta's mind, but it just seemed overly complicated for a guy who really just wants to get punishment for the death of his family. It just seemed to sort of overcomplicate the matters, you know, and make it that much more the way things can go wrong potentially in a scenario where he could have just killed them. I mean, I guess it would make it a bit more of a boring film in that case, and this is what I mean. The Punisher, the film, this is probably the most complex plot, I would say, out of the three Punisher films, but at the same time, I think it kind of it makes it lose.
So do you prefer like the original Punisher?
Well, here's the thing. For a film, I actually think this is the best film out of the three Punisher films, but I don't think it's the best Punisher.
Oh, right, yeah.
If you see what I mean. Now, I'm going to be controversial. I actually think Dolph Lundgren's my favourite out of the three Punisher films, but I think this is a better film, if that makes sense. But I prefer the depiction of the Punisher, even though it's kind of an 80s cheese one. To me, that was better, a better depiction of the Punisher. And I'll come on to the 89 version of the Punisher at another time. I think it's 89 anyway. And but this, I would say, this is what I wanted you to see. I think this is better just for a kind of film, really. So, what would you give it from 1 to 10?
Well, I saw it probably 6.
6.
Yeah.
I'll give this one a 6.5. So probably very similar, yeah. Okay, so what did you think of it? What's your favourite Punisher about the three of them? And leave me a comment. 14 soon. Bye for now.